Welcome to BALLBUSTERS Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a Superchat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. If you'd like to join the community debate, then there's a link to nathanoakley.com also in the info box below this video. Joining me this evening is Quantum Eraser, Paula and Betty. Very good to have you all. Welcome, one and all.
Hello, hello.
Good evening.
Was ist los?
Was ist los? German now?
So it transpires in the pre-show, although it probably wasn't recorded, that this is the favourite subject of several ballbusters. Not necessarily myself, although I do love the debating aspects of it, but we're going to be covering the creator versus atheism. So typically on ballbuster shows, when this subject comes up, although aspects have come up in other things that we have covered, we typically just say, in the info box, there's a link to creator versus atheism. It was done on a science versus scientism. The original name, that's changed a few times, so it then became science versus pseudoscience, which is far more appropriate. But nevertheless, that's where we typically direct people when it came to this discussion. So in this instance, we're actually going to go through it in a bit more detail and involve the Discord server. So what I will do while the presentation's rolling is stick a link to the Discord server in the info box below this video, so towards the end of the show, you can join and present your opinions once the presentation is over. So first and foremost, a massive shout out to Eagle Plane and Anchor for hitting the super chat. Really appreciate your support. But hopefully we'll have a bit of a preamble discussion and then we'll get into the presentation. So who wants to go first?
Paula.
Seriously, okay.
You do it every week.
I can think of stuff. So
No pressure.
No pressure.
no, I think you're going to start, right?
Well, we were already talking about it before the show began, about God and the Ten Commandments and morals and values. And I think that if people get to know God, then hopefully they can get these proofs first and then go further in their research to getting more into a personal relationship with God. That's my idea of it.
Yeah, I have a link I could spam later, but I can't post it there. But of my thoughts on the whole thing. But I think mainly what we were just saying before the show started, that there's an obsession with, on the part of atheists, for especially Christianity, but religion in general, the same as bald earthers for flat earthers. They, have the same intolerance of people believing things that they don't think they should believe. So that's kind of a connection between the two that I see.
Yeah.
Well, isn't this the ultimate question? This is the
Absolutely.
ultimate question. This is the whole 9 yards, right?
What is that question?
The ultimate question. The creator versus no creator, right?
Were
The
we
full
created?
Monty.
Were we created, or did nature create it all?
Yeah, it all boils down to this question. There shouldn't be any other questions. This is the question, right? This is a personal question for everyone to answer by themselves alone, right? And it changes everything. So to me, there is no other question.
Yeah, I think that it's an important question. I think that everybody in their lives should basically consider this question: where do I come from, and why am I here? And these are the basic questions that I think that every child asks. And when we get to adulthood, then people usually let that go because we get too busy with our lives and stuff. But it's a very important question.
And the answer is shockingly simple. And we're going to see that here today. Again.
Well, every time it comes up on the show, it generates the most backlash. I think that's the right word. More people are put out by it for some reason or another. which I don't really understand. And again, before we started recording, we were discussing things like, is it flyingspaghettimonster.com? What was the other one you mentioned?
Yeah, Flying Spaghetti Monster, Evil Bible, there's Skeptics Annotated Bible, and a counter site. Talk Origins and the counter site True Origins. There's a long list of anti-Bible, anti-Christian sites by atheists.
Yeah.
Well, the question that I was going to ask was, I mean, if there are any Sikhs or Muslims or any other denomination for that matter that are in the audience that know of equivalent sites but for their specific religion, so if there's an anti-Muslim version of Flying Spaghetti Monster, just either let us know in the chat or let us know in the comments. I'd be intrigued to know if there is any equivalents that we just don't get on our internet or however our links work for our language. I just don't know. There may be equivalents that are anti-Muslim. I just don't know. But it was certainly, like I say, it was discussed before the show, and I don't know of any. You may. Any of the Ballbusters know of any anti-Muslim sites that are like Flying Spaghetti Monster?
Not by atheists that I can think of. There's always inter-religious anti-this, anti-that, when they go back and forth against each other. But for atheists to pick on religion, it's almost always Christianity, as far as I know.
Yeah, it seems that they tend to go sooner to the Islam than to Christianity for some reason, or to Judaism instead of Christianity. That's also a thing. Yeah, I don't know why that is.
Yeah, and they sit back and laugh and sneer, right? When they're Elmer Fudd pretender clowns. They're not intellectuals. They have no idea what science is. Obviously, they just sit back. Oh, you believe in God? What's your proof? Right? We've been hearing this for how long? I started listening to this. I went as far back as I could. Obviously, this question has been going on for ever since the beginning, right? However, in the modern era, I tried to go back like these debates were 1950s, 1960s, a lot more in the 1970s. I mean, it was really prevalent. It really started to kick into gear. But
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but you see then in later dates that the audience is now more atheist than Christians, it seems, unless they do these debates in a church or in a Christian community. But I've seen these earlier shows or these earlier debates on this topic, and then you see that there are more Christians usually in the audience. So.
And what did they ask for? Right? What's the question? Prove God. Prove a creator. Okay, 12 years ago, I kept on hearing this. I said, okay, no problem. And I put more or less this whole thing together. I mean, there's a couple new things in here, but the majority of it, I put it together and posted it on quote on unquote scientific sites. I mean, it has to be thousands of or hundreds of different sites, thousands of times. And what do I get? Right after they say, because I'm just waiting for it, right? It's always going to come out. Prove God. Okay. So I write it up, and what do they do? Can you tell me?
Hand wave dismissal?
Yep. Whistle right past the graveyard the next day. Prove God. You know what I started doing in the beginning? Because I got sick of it, right? I started putting little comments inside the body of the text. I'd put their name in, and I'd say, so you like to do it with carnival tent midgets, and just inside the text like a Trojan horse. And then I'd put this presentation out, and no one would say anything. So they didn't even read it. That's how I knew. So I said, oh, so you like to get on with carnival tent midgets? And they're like, what? I said, yeah, I wrote that right up there. Cause that's what I had to do because they wouldn't read what I was writing.
And see, then they would get mad at you, right?
Yep. That's blind, fanatical, religious zealotry. Like, cover your eyes, stick your fingers into your ears and say, la, 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 over and over again, right? That's what they do.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with here. These ball-tards have the same attitude. And of course, the majority of them are atheists also, right? Same behaviors.
Yeah, but that's the thing also with flat Earth is that if you know that you have a domed Earth, then you know that there's a creation, because that screams creation.
Precisely.
And they don't want to go that way because they can't. They want it to they don't want the accountability. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's true. But we're going to drag them that way.
But it's not that they do intentionally in full consciousness, but I think subconsciously they're having these issues most of the time.
Yep. How can you have a gas pressure without a container? That's the one. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, Conspiracy Cat's first entering into this arena when he was just some teacher was exactly that. So it was show 322, I believe, and you dragged him around by his short hairs, making him formulate a scientific hypothesis for gravity. But he also discussed gas pressure without a container. Great stuff. Happy days.
Who was that?
Conspiracy Cats.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yep.
Do we have a quote from him? What was the quote?
Well, yeah, without the container, there can be no pressure.
Is that 2018?
That's 2019. 2018 would be
okay.
without the balloon, there is no pressure.
Oh,
Slightly
gotcha.
different. The 2019 one's far better. Without the container, there can be no pressure. Conspiracy Cats 2019. Great quote. Great quote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. If it's all good by you guys, I'm going to get into this presentation then. Should we crack on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay,
Well, let's start right at the beginning. Creation, right? So, from Alexander Vilenkin, esteemed cosmologist, it is said that an argument is what convinces reasonable men, and a proof is what it takes to convince even an unreasonable man. With the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. For Professor Davies, the universe can't have existed forever. We know there must have been an absolute beginning a finite time ago. So there's no question here. He didn't tell you why. So let's get to the reason why. And from the late Stephen Hawking, this argument about whether or not the universe had a beginning persisted into the 19th and 20th centuries. It was conducted mainly on the basis of theology and philosophy, with little consideration of observational evidence. This may have been reasonable given the notoriously unreliable character of cosmological observations until fairly recently. The cosmologist Sir Arthur Eddington once said, "Don't worry if your theory doesn't agree with observations, because they are probably wrong. But if your theory disagrees with the second law of thermodynamics, it is in bad trouble. In fact, that the universe has existed forever is in serious difficulty. That means, let me translate that for you, pummeled with the second law of thermodynamics. The second law states that disorder always increases with time. Like the argument about human progress, it indicates that there must have been a beginning. Must have. No doubt about it. Right?
Yeah, so now look what we have here. First, we have to establish whether there was a beginning or not. And we got some heavy hitters. Alexander Vilenkin, Professor Paul Davies, and the late Stephen Hawking. Now, these guys are hostile witnesses. There is no better witness than a hostile witness. When you got a hostile witness on the stand, you know cowbell is coming next. Everyone pays attention because they should. These guys are atheists. So they are saying that there must have been a beginning. And why? Well, Stephen Hawking tells you the second law of thermodynamics. Too easy. And I don't think he characterizes Sir Arthur Eddington appropriately. He said, so Sir Arthur Eddington said, don't worry if your theory doesn't agree with the observations because they're probably wrong. Now, that's not what he said, Steve. This is what he said from the nature of the physical world. If your theory is found to be against the second law of thermodynamics, I can give you no hope. There is nothing for your theory but to collapse in the deepest humiliation. That's it. You're done. And this establishes a beginning. So, atheists, it's all downhill for you from here. Got it? Thanks.
Can I add a quick comment? Or can I give a quick request? Please, for those who may not understand, so that this video stands in isolation, just briefly summarise what the second law of thermodynamics is, just so people have a good understanding as we go forward.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, I didn't hear you. Go ahead. Say that one more time, please.
No worries. Just, if you can, briefly summarise the second law of thermodynamics so that it contextualises this in this video in isolation.
Right. The second law of thermodynamics can be easily summarized by all spontaneous processes produce an increase in entropy of the universe. Entropy, you can boil it down and say anything from high concentration to low concentration, right? High pressure to low pressure, hot to cold, always. No exception.
Perfect.
Good.
Yep. Unless there's any other comments from the other ballbusters, I'll move on. Betty, Paula?
Yeah, I remember that I asked John a while ago what that heat death meant with the second law of thermodynamics, because I couldn't understand what was meant by that. But basically, all energy runs out, something like that. Was it that?
Yes, that's correct. It's better stated as the big chill.
Yeah, so basically there's also an end to the beginning.
Yes.
Yes.
Has to be a beginning.
And I was just going to emphasize the hostile witness. That's people don't understand how important that is, because it applies to so many different things, that if you have someone who does not want to believe something agreeing with you on basic evidence or logic or whatever it is, then you have a very strong case, because they're biased against their conclusion. So they're not leaving something out. Their hostility is against the conclusion. And so when they support you, then that's a much better witness and more reliable witness than someone who is already in favor of it.
The only trouble with it is when you're dealing with crayon munchers, as John calls them, they would say words to the effect of, but that person says that God doesn't exist in this particular outsert or this particular quote. In other words, they don't understand how citations and quotes work. And we'll just say,
they get confused in between people's beliefs and what they can scientifically validate. I can care less what the person believes. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican, or if they like vanilla over chocolate, right? That doesn't matter to me. It matters to me what they can validate. Like, even though these guys are pseudoscientists, I mean, you can't get any more pseudoscientists than astrophysics. However, they know the laws of thermodynamics. So they're not going to come out and compromise themselves. They got people like me out here who are going to hold their feet to the fire or to the flamethrower. So they're not going to do that. So it's a question of what they can believe versus what they can scientifically validate. Got it?
got it. Right, let's move on.
So what you usually get, or what I usually get inevitably, is the quantum fluctuations, right? Well, you've got two problems right there. One, you need a quantum vacuum. That means you need a universe in the first place, and you're not getting any quantum fluctuations without a knower of the existence of the Which Path information. So that one's done. And the Big Bang fairy tale, I mean, it's number one, it's not a scientific theory to begin with. Number two, where'd you get the singularity from? All right. So, like I said, so everyone must be a creationist. The only question is, or who or what caused it, right? Now, this is critically important. There are only two possible answers, that is, ontological primitives, to that question. Only two worldviews that can be held to account for how we, the universe, and us are here. That is nature or intelligent agency. That's it. From George Wald, Nobel laureate, medicine and physiology. He's gonna lay it out for you real quick. The reasonable view was to believe in spontaneous generation. The only alternative is to believe a single primary act of supernatural creation. There is no third position. So let's break this down. Number one, the reasonable view was to believe in spontaneous generation, that is nature or unguided. The only alternative, a single primary act of supernatural creation, God guided. There it is. That's it. There is no third position. So the true dichotomy is nature versus God. Period. End of story. Now, if you outright refute or rule out one of those choices, then based on the laws of logic, you ipso facto must believe the other. It's called a disjunctive syllogism. It's a logical argument of the form that if there are only two possibilities and one of them is ruled out, well, the other one then must therefore be true. Real easy. There they are, right there. It's either natural phenomena or intelligent design. Now, people can conjure all kinds of things, but every single thing they do conjure will fall beneath either natural phenomena or intelligent design. The most common one I get is, the aliens. It has to be aliens. Well, are they intelligent? Yeah, so they'll fall under intelligent design. And furthermore, that's not really saying too much because you just kick the question or kick the can down the street. Because then the next question is, well, how were the aliens created? Was it intelligent design or natural phenomena? So that it ends it right there. This is critically important to understand. And it makes it real easy from here on out. This also pummels the God of the gaps appeals or an argument from ignorance fallacy, right? Because there are no gaps. It's either intelligent design or natural phenomena. That's it. And it pummels the presupposition appeals because everyone has a presupposition. The atheist presupposition is that there is no God or creator. So therefore, their presupposition is natural phenomena or nature created us. So that kind of cracks me up when they call me a presuppositionalist. Well, so are you. It exposes the entire charade right on its face.
Okay.
Yep. So we got the most important ones, right? The ontological primitives. This sets the stage. And it's real easy from here on out because essentially I can stop right here. And the second point was you always hear this, right? People complain about Christians being presuppositionalist. I mean, you got to be some kind of special retard to not understand that you're one also, because your presupposition is nature created us, right? It baffles me, truly baffles me. That's it.
I like the where'd you get the singularity from? Because the last time this came up on one of the other, I think it was on one of the other BALLBUSTERS, they tend to start at that point, don't they?
Yeah. Yep. Have to.
Paula?
Yeah, that's the thing they keep repeating because they don't know what else to do. That's their eternal fallacy, is just to keep asserting that it must have happened some unnatural or natural way, or they push it away from where anyone could examine in space and time and whatever they want to imagine. They push it away where you can't check it. And a single past event like the singularity exploding can't be examined. It's one off. It's done. You have to use forensics to determine, and you can use current scientific laws, but you can't say they were different back then. That's special pleading again. And there's just no escaping a fallacy no matter which way they turn. It's an indefensible position.
I think we had that from Kosho on one of the shows, didn't we? And he was like, well, maybe the physics was different back then. We just don't know.
Yep. Special pleading fallacy.
Exactly. Anything to add, Betty?
Yeah, I think that guided and unguided are key words too, instead of natural and the other. Because guided means that you need an intelligent agent to do stuff, to have thought about it and to have acted upon it. We all know that if you do nothing in your life, nothing gets accomplished. We have to think about it, put action into it, and then it becomes something. And without it, there's nothing, because there's no intent. There's no intent to doing anything. And therefore, there had to be a primal mover, so to speak, that would do that would set things in motion and have the intent and design things for us to work with, like the very dirt that we live on. And I have that joke. I've told it, I think, a couple of times.
Let's have it. Let's have
joke.
It.
Right?
Yeah, let's have it.
Yeah. So you have these scientists that say, well, God, that say to God, well, I don't need you anymore, God. You can go. Just let us take over. And then God says, well, let's check this. And we both make man, and I'll let you begin. And then scientists say, okay, that's good. And they go to the ground, pick up some dirt, and then God says, well, whoa, what you gonna do? Pick your own dirt, make your own dirt, right? So if you tell that joke, everybody will snicker. But also the complications of that joke are great, because the very thing that we live on, the very things that we work with, are already designed for us to work with. And that's why I say when people say, well, I don't see God, I don't have any existence, see not the existence of God, I say, well, look around you. I mean, we have things that we see, the things that we can work with. And that's beautiful. And so that's one of the arguments that I usually tell people. And the other thing is, if you see pyramids in the sand, like in Egypt, you don't think that sand, rock, and water and wind will have made that. You know that there is a designer. You don't need to see the designer to know that these pyramids are being made by an intelligent design. So that's it.
Not to mention the fact that in order for there to be a singularity that explodes and certain things happen, they have to have physical laws. Well, where did the physical laws come from? Did they arise out of nature? Yeah. Which happened first. They were already following laws to do what quote unquote scientists say they did in the first billionths of a second. They're saying, well, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. Well, they follow today's known agreed upon laws. Yeah. Well, where did those come from? Laws have to be designed. They come from an intelligence. So nature wouldn't exist and wouldn't do anything, wouldn't have reactions unless they were coded to do that.
Yeah, like the computer program, right? We are merely the avatars of that computer program, but the designer is outside the system doing things. Yeah, so we can only wonder what the designer outside our computer program looks like and what its attributes are, but there will always be greater and more than we can ever comprehend. We cannot make God like us because he's not. He's more.
And I think it was Stephen Jay Gould, wasn't it, who made a computer program that he thought proved that if you took some random characters and ran them through certain iterations, that you would come up with these comprehensible English sentences, ignoring the elephant in the room, which was, first of all, you wrote a program. Second of all, you gave it rules to follow in how to do these quote unquote random things. And third, you told them what the letters were to start with. I mean, How is that natural and unguided?
Get
It
your
was
own
just a
letters.
farce.
Get your own letters, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. It not only speaks to, well, where did the laws come from? No. Where did the matter come from? Back to Betty's point, get your own dirt. That screams from the mountaintops quantum mechanics. Screams it.
Is that the next bridge to the next topic?
Yeah.
That topic's coming up here shortly. I don't know about an upcoming bridge shortly, but it's going to get there.
Okay.
Like I said, therefore, the atheist creator must be matter or nature, and that is philosophical naturalism or realism. If your choice is nature, you kind of have some big problems. Number one, matter cannot create itself because that would mean it existed prior to its existence. That's logical seppuku. And from Professor Bernard D. Espignon, listen closely, folks. The doctrine that the world is made up of objects whose existence is independent of human consciousness, that is mind-independent reality, or philosophical naturalism, realism, that's atheism, turns out to be in conflict with quantum mechanics and with facts established by experiment. It's over. It's over right there. That is, matter is derivative, the consequent, and consciousness or knowledge is primary. That is the necessary antecedent. Simple as that, folks.
Yeah, it is. Just as simple as that, folks. It's over right here. Everything else following is just barely palpable background noise. I mean, and all you have atheists do is whistle past the graveyard by this. Oh, quantum mechanics is spooky. It's mysterious. Nobody knows anything about it. Yeah. I mean, you got to be a crayon munching retard. We know about it. We use the technology. We know this. You have complete idiots telling you that they don't know about it when we do know about it. And you're going to find it at the end of the presentation where they knew about it back in the 1920s at the beginning. Clowns.
Oh, supernatural. This term has more baggage than Samsonite. But let's break it down. Let's see what it means. So the prefix super means over and above. What does nature mean? Well, the physical world and everything in it. And therefore, natural is the physical material world. So supernatural must mean above or beyond the material physical world or universe. Therefore, it logically follows that the supernatural is immaterial, completely lacking matter and energy, right? So, I ask the question, do these exist? Truth, logic, information, time, thoughts, mass. These are immaterial or supernatural by definition. Unless you can post a chemical formula or structure, charge, mass, momentum, or spin, or the kcals, joules, millielectron volts for each of the above. Can you give that to me? Of course not. It's preposterous. It's a ridiculous question. So if not, Alice in Wonderland is more tenable than your position. Moreover, in an atheistic worldview, that is philosophical naturalism or realism, that's scientifically falsified, by the way. We'll get more into detail into that here in a few minutes, which has its bedrock foundation that the physical material world is all that exists. How on earth can the immaterial exist without violating the law of non-contradiction? That is, how can the material physical world be all that exists and have the immaterial exist, right? It's a right in your face contradiction. Like I said, the truth, logic, information, time, thoughts, math are again by definition supernatural. So if you're an atheist and you believe in these, then you must be a supernatural atheist, right? Now that'll give married bachelors a run for their money. Essentially, what atheists are doing, which is really incomprehensibly absurd, they're adopting the Christian worldview by using the immaterial, thoughts, truth, logic, and information, using the very tenets their religion must deny the existence of, as the vehicle or medium to present evidence against the very thing they can't believe in, a creator, the Christian worldview. See it? Logically, it's a hammer meets C4 fire scenario. It makes a $6 million man crash and burn look like a fender bender. It's tantamount to attempting to falsify air, all the while breathing in vast quantities to reach the invalidation. Therefore, every atheist is a presuppositional kleptomaniac because they're stealing my worldview. Stop stealing and using my worldview to clumsily attempt to falsify my worldview, please.
Presuppositional kleptomaniacs. Every single one of them. And I just showed you why. This supernatural argument is a death blow. I just sit back and wait for this word. It's a trigger word. Because it's eventually, you know, it's coming up. You know, we got supernatural bird's nest. You know, it's coming up. So, so hashtag supernatural bird's nest. So like I said, I just sit back, any forum, it doesn't matter. This is coming up, and you know what's coming behind it. My flamethrower. That's it.
Flamethrower?
Yep. It's a Samsonite flamethrower.
Because it carries more weight?
I don't know. Can you get out of this argument? They're forever, they're stuck.
They try because they think that they also have the right to supernatural somehow. There are atheists that believe in the supernatural.
Yeah, and there are married bachelors too. And achromatic rainbows, yes, we have military intelligence, yes, we have all those too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing to me that they can, but they hold two contradictory positions. It's doublethink and doublespeak again in these arguments.
Exactly. You got it.
Yeah, they hijacked that too, and they say that they have moral values. Yeah, because they were installed upon people, so we all have them, but they try to hijack that and say that they can make better moral values and laws and rules, right? So I think they can do better. I think I've seen a sort of a summary, different kind of set of rules instead of the 10 Commandments, for example, and they didn't cover everything, I think, but they think that that's more coherent than the 10 Commandments, and they try to make their own rules. That's basically it. Well, 10 would be enough.
Yeah, do what thou wilt, right?
Yeah, but if they say basically, like I said a little bit before the show began, that they can make their own rules, right, and do just what they want. But if everybody does that and make their own personal rules, then it will be chaos. I mean, I could say a red light is going through it, and another says, well, you have to stop. And so then everything gets convoluted. And I think that now we live in a world where we can see that more and more, that people we have to have so many laws and rules now that if we only would have agreed with the 10, then we would have been done with the 10. That's good enough. But now we have law books full of anything that you can think of because it gets so convoluted. But it's way off topic now. But yeah.
Yeah, being able to falsify is something is their own agreed upon rule that if something is scientific, you have to be able to falsify it, and it's utterly impossible for the natural to falsify the supernatural by its own definition. It can never do that. And they think that because they can come up with a story that makes sense to them that's purely natural, then it must be true. This is another fallacy where they exclude all other possibilities. But science says not only do you have to say something's possible, you have to rule out everything else. And they can never do that. It's an impossible corner they painted themselves into.
Yep.
Yeah. Nathan?
I've got nothing to add. I'll carry on with the presentation.
Information, the bully on the block. This is critically important to understand. All of the actual sciences, physics, that is quantum mechanics, genetics, biochemistry, are all information sciences. Why? Well, information is more than just a description of our universe and the stuff in it. It is the most basic currency of existence, occupying what theorist Paul Davy terms as the ontological basement of reality. Well, Professor Davies is close. He's one step away. Information, as I said, is the consequent of its necessary antecedent. The knower, or an intelligent agent, can't have information without an intelligent agent. We're going to see that here in a couple minutes. Information, let's define it. This is real easy. Information, the communication or reception of knowledge or intelligence. Just that simple, folks. That's what it is. Codes make up 99.9% of it. From Grunwald and Vitania, algorithmic information theory. And we all know this, but let's let them say it. We repeatedly consider the following scenario. A sender, say A, wants to communicate or transmit some information to a receiver, say B. The information to be transmitted is an element from some set X. It will be communicated by sending a binary string called the message. When B receives the message, he can decode it again and hopefully reconstruct the element of X that was sent. This is very important. To achieve this, A and B need to agree on a code or a description method before communicating. Because if they don't, it's all going to be noise, right? And is it possible for inanimate matter, that's atoms and molecules, to make agreements and communicate with each other? I don't think so. So for information, as we can see, I highlighted a few terms up here. What do we need? For information to exist, you not only need a transmitter and a receiver, but they need to agree beforehand on the medium, convention, and the meaning. Let me give you an example. Which one of these is information? Then why or why not? You can just answer these questions to yourself. Number one or number two? Obviously, number two is information. I mean, if you read English, number two is information. What's number one? Is there anything in there that anyone can elucidate or decipher? Not so much, right? This is just noise. However, after I give you the cipher for one, they both contain the exact same information. Meet me at Joe's for drinks. What's the difference? Well, like I said, we didn't agree on the cipher beforehand of number one. So if I sent you the cipher beforehand, the cipher is every fourth letter. You can go through that on your own. It's the same thing. Meet me at Joe's for drinks. Another example, what's the information in here? Well, anyone looking at it is just going to say, come on, man, give me a break, you know? Well, the information in there is Jesus saves. The cipher that you didn't receive is every fifth, fourth, third, second, first, then start over. Right, and then you can go through that on your own to figure it out. I just want you to get the concept. One of my favorites, and this isn't a personal dig to the audience out there, Nathan. Paul Revere, what's the code? 1 light or 2 lights, right? Well, what's the software or the information? Well, it was the agreed upon meaning, convention, and medium between Paul and the Patriots. Well, who created the software and the message or the information? The 1 if by land or 2 if by sea? A, was it the lights? Or B, Paul Revere and the Patriots? Which one? According to a philosophical naturalist or realist or atheist, it must be the lights, right? What would have happened if Paul Revere never met, that is, agreed on the medium, convention, and the meaning with the Patriots, and just sent signals, 1 or 2 lights at random, from the Old North Church? Not much. Say, we might be having tea and strumpets daily. Moreover, was it the lights or the medium that coordinated the meeting? Of course not. It's preposterous. Information is semiotic. That is, it's not a physical entity or a part of the medium of conveyance. Photons from Paul Revere's lamps weren't physically carrying information. The lights were just the medium used to signal the intelligent agents, who then assigned the prearranged meaning. Now information exists. It is only then they know which path. So you're looking at a code right now. It's called the English language. The software of the information is the preemptive agreed upon convention so we can understand the message. It's semiotic. Without meaning, convention, and agreement, there is no information. And you just seen a perfect example of that with my examples above. It's utter noise. Code, information, software is always, ever sourced by intelligent agency, without exception. So it's not only important to know what information is, but it's critically important to know what information isn't. Your interpretation of the physical effects or the consequences of the existence of inanimate objects is not information. It's your imagination. When I put my hand under running water, the water's not informing me that it's wet or that it's cold or hot. When a tree branch falls in the woods, the sound waves aren't communicating me I've fallen and I can't get up. Moreover, information is not the medium used to convey it, and the medium is arbitrary. For example, it's the same as someone writing, "Look out, there's a tiger behind you." That's information. Those are instructions, right? Well, I can write it in just about anything, any medium. Chalk, sand, Cheerios, Etch-a-Sketch, M&Ms, 3/4 inch nuts. I can go on for quite a while here. It's arbitrary. It doesn't matter. And atheists have another big problem with information because information is neither matter or energy. Well, their worldview states that only matter or energy exist, right? From Norbert Wiener, professor of mathematics, MIT, information is information, neither matter nor energy. I mean, he said it. Everyone, we know this, prima facie. So, how on earth can atheists even account for information existing in their worldview? If you're a philosophical naturalist, realist, or atheist, the bedrock foundation of your religion, like I said, is that matter or energy is all that there is. So pray tell, if information is neither matter nor energy, and your beliefs dictate that matter or energy is all there is, well, then you're in what we call the industry screwed. Married bachelors are more tenable.
Turn out the lights. The party's over. That's it. Information. Information is the key. The logos. It's over. 3 of my proofs below are based on information. Information kills the atheist religion. Period. End of story.
Yeah, but I think that many people have difficulties with that. And I can remember that you had a conversation with Robert Bassano on his channel. I think it was in 2015 with 2 other guys. And you got into a big debate with that because they think that information is basically the medium where it's transported on, or the writings, or something like that. But it's the supernatural of the writing, of the information, basically. And it was really good to see how you said it. And I grasped it, but these guys on the panel, and even Robert, they had a hard time with it.
This reminds me of a documentary I saw. I think it was Nova or something like that, where they tried to show that by analyzing how a brain does what it does, that they could prove that everything, every thought, religious experiences could all be explained by electrochemical reactions in the brain. But the question they never touched was, okay, why isn't the brain a random mass of firings? Why does it have any information? What tells the sequence to start? They couldn't explain it. They didn't even try. And the thing is that there was an old expression for it, that the brain is a machine that a ghost can operate, because the brain itself cannot explain why it initiates thoughts and why they follow any kind of order, because nature has no goals. Nature has no plans. It has no information without it being immaterially added. And so thoughts themselves have to be initiated from the supernatural realm.
Yeah, thoughts, information, intent. Yeah, those are key words, I think, for intelligence, right?
Right.
Yeah,
and sentience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what's information? Give me some info. I want to see the information. I'm not going to go into DNA because we're going to get to that here, but here in a second. But what's information? He just told you it's neither matter nor energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I could give you a bit of a weighing of a measurement of some description of information, couldn't I? I'm sure it's got charge or spin or something like that.
Go ahead, show it.
I know that Robert Bassano said that he was going to see if an empty memory bank was lighter than a full memory bank, because then that would show that information had weight to it.
I'm sure that concept.
What I did was I told him to get a floppy disk, and I told him to load it with as much software as he could put on there. Right. And I told him, well, before you do that, go ahead and weigh the floppy disk and then just hammer this disk with as much software as you could put on. And then after you're done putting it on, weigh it again. Tell me the difference.
He never got back to you, did he?
I could swear either my memory's terrible and I remember this from you having that conversation with Robert Bassano, or, and I'm sure I'll get corrected in the comments, I think this is actually a mainstream concept of information having a weight, and I'm sure it wasn't contextualized in the same way, but similar. I'll look into that while we're going through the presentation, but I'm almost certain it's a mainstream rhetoric.
Oh, really? So it's a weight, so it has force?
I think so. I'll have to dig it out to find the context. It's a long time ago since I remember this being mentioned, but I'm pretty sure it's pre-Flyer that I heard that idea of information having a physical weight. And again, I'm sure we'll have somebody in the comments that'll correct me while I'm searching it through. But yeah, I could be wrong. It could just be me remembering it incorrectly, and it's actually that conversation you had with Robert Bassano. But I don't think so.
Yeah, well, they get it mixed up with the medium, like DNA being a medium and writings being mediums, but it's just a medium to convey the messages. But somebody indeed there's a code to that. We have words also. Where does our language come from? I think that was also by design. So yeah, for me it's very clear that is something that. Without information, nothing happens. Without the intent, nothing happens.
You're surprisingly quiet, Paula, considering the amount of information you trawl through, knowledge scavenger.
It's one of those, well, this is all very obvious things. It's hard to find ways to restate it, because we've already, just this far in what we've been running, maybe almost an hour. But the thing is, from the very start, it's over, because you can't explain where anything got started. Just like with even everybody's thoughts, they can't explain what starts them without appealing to the immaterial and the supernatural. And how can you defend that when it's like building a building in midair? There's no foundation at all. So who cares about how fancy of a building you make and how internally consistent your argument is if it's based on nothing? And that's the whole problem with naturalism/atheism, because it's only based upon preconceived fallacious nothing. I don't know what else to call it. And its whole purpose, again, is to try to explain the existence of everything with no beginning. And, they'll always say, well, we're talking about evolution. We don't talk about origins. We only talk about change, which is ridiculous, because you're saying that we're not even allowed to ask the question because you can't answer it. The stacking the deck.
Wait a second. What's evolution?
It depends on who you ask.
Oh, I'm glad that's just come up. So that's another one of those questions that the uninitiated, shall we say, would whistle straight past.
Absolutely. Because they don't want to think about it.
They ain't whistling past that with me. Oh, no. That's just the start.
But why would we listen to anything that atheists say to us? Because if it's just some chemical in the brain talking, what's the value in that?
No, yeah. They can't. No. They can't even believe that exists. Yeah. I don't think you're grasping the gravity, no pun intended, of the situation here. It is so Elmer Fudd, bash your own head in with the shovel. They can't believe that exists. Yeah. Are you following me? Because that's information that a naturalist, information cannot exist in a naturalist worldview. That's it. So this is preposterous absurdity that we're talking about here, folks.
Yeah, I agree.
Move on? Happy to move on? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
So now the evidence is we finally got there. We needed to establish those foundations. In fact, I really don't have to go on any further. It's already over. But since we scheduled this, we might as well go ahead and do it. So evidences for the creator. Bear in mind, these are not belief propositions. They are knowledge claims. Big difference right there, folks. So let's go through them. Number one, scientific law. This is my law. Don't go trying and ask me for citations and where this came from. It's mine. I made it. So information, code, software is only ever caused by intelligent agency, without exception. That is, whenever we find information existing and trace it back to its source, it invariably leads to an intelligent agent every single time. My support? Library of Congress, all books, all newspapers, all languages, all computer software. The information age. It's right in front of our face. So, my null hypothesis in support. Nature or natural phenomena causation cannot create algorithmic cybernetic coding and decoding schemes. That's information. If you cry foul and claim that there's no information or code in the genetic code, you're screwed. From Hood and Gallus, the digital code of DNA in nature. DNA has two types of digital information. The genes that encode proteins, which are the molecular machines of life, that should jump off the page at you, and the gene regulatory networks that specify the behavior of genes. From the father of information theory, H.P. Yockey, and no, it's not Claude Shannon, it's H.P. Yockey. The genetic code performs a mapping between the sequences of the 4 nucleotides in messenger RNA to the sequences of the 20 amino acids in a protein. It is highly relevant to the origin of life that the genetic code is constructed to confront and solve the problems of communication and recording by the same principles found both in the genetic information system and in modern computer and communication codes. From Richard Dawkins. That's a hostile witness if I ever seen one. There is enough storage capacity in the DNA of a single lily seed or a single salamander sperm to store the Encyclopedia Britannica 60 times over. Some species of the unjustly called primitive amoebas have as much information in their DNA as 1,000 Encyclopedia Britannicas. So I have roughly about 1.8 million more in support if you need them. So my position, the null hypothesis. Nature and natural phenomena causation cannot create algorithmic cybernetic coding and decoding schemes. That's DNA transcription and translation. It's all information based. And as we went over in the previous discussion in the other video, the null hypothesis is what? Well, it's the default. We will accept the null hypothesis if you fail to provide sufficient evidence for the alternative hypothesis. So, the alternative hypothesis, your position, which you have to provide evidence for to refute this, because it's the default. Nature, natural phenomena causation can create algorithmic cybernetic coding and decoding schemes. Right? Best wishes. So essentially, you must show ink, paper, and glue molecules authoring technical instruction manuals or blueprints. That's what you got to show to overthrow my null hypothesis or to reject it. Now, the ink, paper, and glue molecules is analog to ribose, nucleobases, and activated phosphates. The technical instruction manual or blueprints is DNA. If not, therefore a creator. Period. Essentially, the syllogism. Code contains information, such as a book, Morse code, DNA, instructions, etc. Information is only created by authors. That's intelligent agent. DNA is a code, therefore DNA has an author. This is irrefutable. All these are irrefutable. You can't touch them.
Turn out the lights. The party's over.
That's
Good night.
It's one of those things that you end up getting totally interrupted, like I've just done when you say ink, paper, and glue. You can normally get that far when you're in discussion and someone will just interrupt you, so you don't get the full point in. So it's nice to have it fully uninterrupted.
Yeah, they can't handle that. You can't handle this. I mean, it's. I don't even know why we're discussing this anymore. Really, they have no way out. There's no way out for them because it's all based on information. It all goes back to the previous discussions. That's it.
People like to argue that consciousness, whatever you want to define that as, arises from nature as well, and that's utterly impossible. It's the other way around. You've been laying out all their own scientists saying as much, saying that these things are caused by consciousness, not causing consciousness. And they want to have their cake and eat it too, basically. They want there to be consciousness and high and lofty morals without acknowledging that nature itself could never come up with that, because nature has to start with being coded to do anything, to exist. Like you said, no way out of it. And I expected you to sing "You Can't Touch This," but hey, you know.
Yeah. So what they're saying is that consciousness is an emergent property of matter, right?
Right.
This is so unbelievably absurd. It's tantamount to saying copper and iron ores, or that the 429 Super Cobra jet Mustang engine is an emergent property from copper and iron ores. I mean, it's that ridiculous. So, go ahead.
Yep. Next one's quite a short one, so.
The next one, quantum mechanics, my favorite. So, let's observe a phenomenon. Photons, elementary particles, atoms, molecules exhibit both wave-like and particle behavior. Sure you see that part, wave-like. Alternative hypothesis. If the which path information is known or can be known, then we will observe no interference. That is, wave function collapse, that is matter existing. The independent variable is inside the experimental setup. It's known versus unknown paths. Dependent variable is matter existing. The null hypothesis. So if the which path information is not known and never can be known, then we will observe interference. That means the wave function is intact. That is no matter. So with the experiment, which ones of the thousands without exceptions would you like? From Zhao Sung Ma, quantum erasure with a causally disconnected choice from the preceding National Academy of Sciences. They say the presence of path information anywhere in the universe is sufficient to prohibit any possibility of interference. It is irrelevant whether a future observer might decide to acquire it. The mere possibility is enough. Therefore, the lack of which path information anywhere in the universe is sufficient enough to prohibit any possibility of wave function collapse. That is, no formation of matter. You don't have matter without a knower first. From Yunhoo Kim, my namesake, a delayed choice quantum eraser. This experiment is the undisputed. And if you want to see a full exposition, a detailed exposition on this experiment, stop by Cathexis's channel. I think it's episode 4, Quantum Physics. The authors show not only that knowledge of the which path information solely collapses the wave function, but can accurately predict future actions of wave-like and particle behavior after the signal photon is registered and before its twin idler has arrived. That is, quantum mechanical phenomena transcend time and space. Good night, Einstein, as an ancillary benefit. In conclusion, this experiment unequivocally validates knowledge or knowing of the which path information alone causes wave function collapse. B, decoherence, that's physical interaction with measuring devices, does not cause wave function collapse. And C, QM phenomena transcend time and space. That is, space-time has no meaning in quantum mechanics. Ergo, matter, our reality, doesn't exist without first a knower of the existence of the which path information. And again, matter is derivative, consciousness or knowledge is primary, the necessary antecedent. Another fatal dagger, non-locality, or what they call instantaneous actions at a distance, or what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. The only thing is spooky is his science acumen. So to overturn the scientific falsification of locality and by direct proxy, philosophical naturalism or realism or atheism, whereby invalidating idealism or Christianity, which is not a religion, by the way, and we're going to get to that here in a few minutes. And as an ancillary benefit, collect yourself a feather in your cap, Nobel Prize. Please take up the Quantum Randy Challenge. The Quantum Randy Challenge. Henceforth, the QRC challenges any pseudoscientist, you as it were, who claims that quantum physics is not true and that quantum entanglement experiments can be explained by a classically realistic and locally causal model. You not only get the Nobel and its money, you get an extra $1 million in US. All you have to do is prove naive realism or local realism is true and not observation dependent. That's more like knowledge or which path information independent. 6+ years now, still no takers. This is still active. 6 years. No takers. I wonder why. Alice in Wonderland has more veracity and is more tenable than philosophical naturalism and realism. Or atheism. Same thing. Therefore, a creator.
Turn out the lights. Party's over. Hey, am I getting better at that?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've often expanded on that example where you gave the scenario where there's the information lost to a fire.
Yes.
I don't know if that comes later in the presentation as well, so I don't want to get you to just do it twice.
No, it doesn't. Quantum mechanics. I end with quantum mechanics here when we move on to different subjects. But Yes, and that's what the quantum eraser with the causally disconnected choice spoke to. The presence of path information anywhere in the universe, that is, it's existing anywhere in the universe, is sufficient to prohibit any possibility of interference, right? That's what it's speaking to. It doesn't matter whether a future observer might decide to acquire it. The mere possibility is enough. So as long as that information is existing somewhere, right, you're good to go. If it can be retrieved or it's retrievable, then no interference. But as soon as that path information is gone, good night, Irene. All you got is interference. Good?
Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
Right, it's actually this one that was a short one, not the next, not the last one.
This is a quick one. The laws of thermodynamics. First law of thermodynamics. The total amount of mass or energy in the universe is constant. That is, nature or natural law cannot create or destroy matter or energy. The second law. The amount of energy available for work is running out. The universe is moving inexorably to maximum entropy, or what they call a heat death, or the big chill. If the total amount of mass or energy is constant, and the amount of usable energy is decreasing, then the universe will end. The heat death, the big chill of the universe. Therefore, it had a beginning, creation, and not the Big Bang pseudoscience train wreck. So, since the first law states that nature or natural law cannot create or destroy matter or energy, and since the universe had a beginning, see the second law, and since there are only two choices, nature versus intelligent design, for the how of that beginning, and since matter and nature can't pre-exist before its existence, then poof itself into existence, and then before that, poof itself from nothing into pre-existence, therefore a creator.
The prosecution rests.
Well, there is actually quite a bit more.
Yeah, just for this one, man. I'm going to continue to go on.
I mean, I'm happy to take some comments on that, though, if Betty or Paula have got anything to add.
Not really. This is the same problem of nothing to go on for the anti-theist side.
Betty, if not, we'll move on.
I think that we said it in the beginning, the things about the laws. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I was going to say the same. We did cover this right at the beginning, but yeah. Okay, we'll move on.
Too easy. Let's summarize this thus far. Number one, the universe had a beginning. Number two, the universe is made of matter. Number three, matter is the consequent. A knower is the necessary antecedent. See quantum mechanics and the laws of thermodynamics above. Four, therefore, a creator. Real simple. Philosophical naturalism and realism, that is atheism, is pummeled and eviscerated. Your only other choice, atheists, must assert, like I just said, the train wreck above, matter pre-existed before it existed, then poofed itself into existence. Before that, it poofed itself from nothing into pre-existence. This train wreck directly violates the first law of thermodynamics, the second law of thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, and, by the way, from Professor Shankar, the chair of professor of physics at Yale, the laws of physics are always quantum mechanical laws. You don't have separate laws for big and small things, so all of physics is debunked. Fourth, the laws of chemistry. If you take all the physical laws, that means chemistry, biochemistry, all laws are gone. Five, the laws of information are gone, and ground squirrel level common sense is also eviscerated. And isn't this dumpster fire not only belief without evidence, but belief in the face of contradicting evidence? Right? The best part, creationists and more or less Christians that we're talking about, are called what? Right? What are we called? We're the science deniers. What? Who's the science deniers again?
Going on in the chat right now.
Yep, that's what they call us, science deniers, while they deny all of physics. It's hard to even speak to. Go ahead. I'm done. I'm not speaking to it because it's absolute preposterous absurdity.
Unbelievable. That leads us into this. I don't want to take a little sidebar. We all heard this, faith versus science, or religion or faith versus science. Let me show you this bait and switch. The powers that need not be couch or frame the argument as science versus faith. We all know this. Religion, belief without evidence. That's all it is, folks. The object of that belief is irrelevant. It could be pixie dust and unicorns. If you don't have evidence for it and you believe it, that's a religion. It's synonymous with faith. Belief that does not rest on logical proof or material evidence, right? That's from the American Heritage Dictionary in 1991. Verse science, the scientific method. Or as it seems to be. We're going to flesh it out here in a second. On its face, it's a proxy or a juxtaposition on the methods, right? Faith, the method, is belief without evidence. Like I said, that's factually incorrect. We'll get to that. Verse science, the method. It's the methods that are in focus here. The scientific method. Of course, that's not what's going on here. In reality, the so-called disciplines that are screaming from the rooftops that there is no God are who? Well, they're the ones that don't follow the scientific method. We identified the masqueraders in the last presentation. These guys, right? The masqueraders. They're not science. Crocheting is more scientific than these clowns combined. So the science part in the science versus faith is actually religion. These are religion, folks. Belief without evidence. And more importantly, biblical faith has substance and evidence. Let's just take it right from the book. Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So it has substance and evidence. And this is another tiny little problem from 1 Thessalonians. Prove all things. Hold fast that which is good. Hold fast, right? Prove all things. Does this sound like a rally call to belief without evidence? Or believe without evidence? No. Is Christianity a religion? Nope. It's a contradiction. Let that marinate, folks. All this is just little word games, little mental and linguistic acrobatics. So the faith part in science versus faith is actually blind faith, giving us religion versus blind faith. Well, what's the difference, right? That's what it actually is. Let's flesh out the true dichotomy. Back to these again. Atheism directly violates the first law, second law of thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, laws of chemistry and biochemistry, laws of information, and ground squirrel level common sense. And like I said, isn't this dumpster fire not only belief without evidence? That's religion. But it's belief in the face of contradicting evidence. This is willfully blind, fanatical religious zealotry, right? Who fell for this false dichotomy, science versus faith? So in reality, the true argument actually is this guy. Scientifically falsified fanatical religion, pseudoscience, versus intelligent agency, God. There's your true dichotomy, folks. Let's get ready to rumble, right?
No further questions.
Stepping all over John.
There you go.
Isn't it? Well,
You talked over.
you say no further questions. Isn't it an outrage that they call their side of the argument science?
Yeah, that's how they fool you. It's just a little bait and switch with no substance whatsoever. It's just little linguistic games. That's all you see. If you go onto the forums, you'll have whole forums based on science versus faith. That's the title. I go to the moderators and then to the owners of the site and then engage them. That's what it's come down to, because it's really just, like I said, second grade linguistic word games. That's it.
But the reality is typically going to be, well, at least with you, pseudoscience versus science, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Any more for any more? Happily move on if not.
Yeah. Oh.
Not going to be too much of a rumble. Number 4, the last proof. I got about 30 of them, but we'll just roll with the last one here. Functional sequence specified complexity. What you'll hear people say is, oh, complexity. Snowflakes, they're complex, or bring up innumerable things of complexity and try to muddy the waters. Well, these are complex. How do you know the intelligent agent made these? Yeah. All right. Let's see if that holds water. Functional sequence specified complexity. Hallmarks reveal intent, purpose, planning, choice, interlinked systems, often with contingency, contrived. That is, without deterministic law like necessity. What you don't hear, there are 3 types of complexity. Number 1, random sequence complexity. Number 2, ordered sequence complexity. And number 3, functional sequence specified complexity. Random, just like how it sounds, you pick a handful up, throw it against the wall, whatever sticks, well, there you go. The aftermath of a tornado is a good example. Ordered sequence complexity is just like how it sounds, right? Crystals, snowflakes, sand dunes, fractals. As opposed to functional sequence specified complexity. It puts the lotion in the basket. Sandcastles, the genetic code, barbecue grills, Indy cars, hyper nanotech machines and robots, kinesin, ATP synthase, flagellum, cilia, all these molecular machines and robots, and thousands of others in your cells. So random sequence complexity and ordered sequence complexity, that equals a nature construct. As opposed to functional sequence complexity, that is an intelligent design construct. We can tell it real easy. All of us know it intuitively. It's the difference between this and this, right? We all know the difference here. We know there's a different mediator that's causing this, right? Hopefully we all know that. From the Grand Poobah, Leslie Orgel of Origin of Life Research. In brief, living organisms are distinguished by their specified complexity. Crystals are usually taken as the prototypes of simple, well-specified structures because they consist of a very large number of identical molecules packed together in a uniform way. Lumps of granite or random mixtures of polymers are examples of structures that are complex, but not specified. The crystals fail to qualify as living because they lack complexity. The mixtures of polymers fail to qualify because they lack specificity. From H.P. Yockey again, the attempts to relate the idea of order with biological organization or specificity must be regarded as a play on words that cannot stand careful scrutiny. This is what this whole game boils down to, folks. It's just play on words, incoherent plays on words. Informational macromolecules can code genetic messages and therefore can carry information because the sequence of bases or residues is affected very little, if at all, by self-organizing physical-chemical factors. So what H.P. Yockey is trying to tell you that ink molecules don't conspire with other ink molecules or with paper to go ahead and construct letters or symbols into sentences to form coherent messages. I think he's got a pretty good case. From the king of the laws of thermodynamics, Nobel Prize winner, Ilya Prigogine. The point is that in a non-isolated open system, there exists a possibility of formation of ordered, low entropy structures at sufficiently low temperatures. This ordering principle is responsible for the appearance of ordered structures, such as crystals, as well as for phenomena of phase transition. For water, that's liquid water, ice, water vapor, and snowflakes. Unfortunately, This principle cannot explain the formation of biological structures. So there goes your snowflakes appeal. By the way, no amount of random sequence complexity or ordered sequence complexity or any combination thereof will ever lead to functional sequence complexity. That is, folks, what he's trying to say is that no amount of this will ever give you this. We all know this. Other examples of functional sequence specified complexity, cholecystokinin. This is a peptide hormone that's functional protein produced in the mucosal epithelium of the small intestine and stimulates release of digestive enzymes from the pancreas, vital for digestion and absorption. Without it, you die. Albumin, a functional protein, this is only produced by the liver. It consists of a single polypeptide chain of 580 amino acids. Of its many functions, its main function is to maintain intravascular oncotic colloidal osmotic pressure. It is vital to homeostasis. Without it, you die. You can't interchange these. They are functionally specific, sequentially complex. You cannot interchange them. They are specifically designed for their specific roles and their specific functions. So if you're still having a case of the willful stupids with complexity or mindlessly parroting pseudoscience priests, call or email the SETI Institute, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and ask them how they can tell the difference between random sequence complexity and ordered sequence complexity and functional sequence specified complexity. They'll tighten your shock group right quick. Information, all of biology, that is life, the genetic code, replication, transcription, translation, every single metabolic pathway, all of physics, basically all of reality, are the quintessential examples of functional sequence specified complexity. Therefore, a creator.
I have to admit, this is my first love. This proof right here. It's simple elegance. A child can understand this argument. It's beautiful, really. That's it.
Yeah, irreducible complexity is unavoidable. And it gets orders of magnitude worse when we consider how interdependent not only the cells in the body are, but other bodies or plants and bees and all these things. They would have to have evolved together at the same perfect pace because they're interdependent. And not only are the odds of that happening naturally astronomical, to use a familiar term, but when people say, well, we're going to find life in outer space and that'll prove that we're nothing special, it's beyond impossible that this same miracle that they believe it happened here could happen a billion times every place else. This whole problem of complexity and interdependence is something they just can't avoid. And then they absolutely grasp at straws with their punctuated equilibrium or panspermia or whatever, is the theory of the day. They still, all they're doing is shuffling checkers around the board because they can't ever get out of this corner they painted themselves in. It's impossible to avoid this interdependence and think that it evolved and think that it kept evolving and think that it happened over and over and over again. That's a bigger belief in miracles than any theistic belief I can imagine.
Can I stop you for a second? You said evolved like 3 or 4 times.
That's what they tell me. You know
what's evolution?
Right.
Mhm.
Well,
right.
also-
Just the common terminology,
Well, a very good point. I'm not trying to whistle past that, but also you said space, and I was going to ask off the back of that a question to John, who was in these debates and discussions before Flat Earth came along. So when that came up and people appealed, as Paula described, to space aliens or whatever, did no pennies drop, or was there no ideas of the second law, which presumably you were discussing at the time in these same threads? Did that not?
So you're going to throw your partner under the bus here?
No, not at all. I'm just intrigued to know if it ever came up, or when it did, was there any overlap at that time? We know where the Go on, sorry.
You're talking in reference to the flat Earth?
Well, not necessarily, just more that you was if that came up as Paula described it, they're appealing to space, very specifically, right? A medium that within the flat Earth community we debunk based on the second law of thermodynamics, which is something that's being discussed in this very topic. So although it's not necessarily going to be on the same thread, but that's kind of what I'm asking. Was it ever the case that it was on the same thread? Not because I'm trying to throw you under the bus and say, ha, you didn't recognise that space is a second law of thermodynamics.
You should. You should.
Oh, you should I?
Yeah, because I'm guilty. Yeah, thanks, man.
Oh, well, that's your own self-guilt, because I wasn't trying to throw you under the bus. I'm just saying it's an intriguing overlap that if you don't recognise already, if you're in the discussion and you're reasonably familiar with the shows I do at least, you'll instantly recognise that we're talking about the second law of thermodynamics, and when this particular part of the argument comes up, you go, all right, you're going to appeal to space, are you? Just interesting.
No, and you're correct. I was just joking because you're exactly right. I felt I should be indicted more than anyone else. So I carry that with me. It's my cross to bear.
On the contrary, consider what may have been at the time deemed your peers, who, in the face of this information, would rebel against it and try and find a workaround the second law. That's a fairly common reaction that we see. So for you to go, oh my God, well, that's the correct reaction. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
right.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's really the point I was making is that this is nothing new that we're seeing now with denying every bit of the actual scientific method in measuring or observing the Earth that we're on. It's the same tactic. It's just shifted focus from creation evolution to Earth shape. There's nothing new about it.
Absolutely. I could transpose one of the flat Earth debate chats on top of the chat that's running by this show right now, and you'd hardly tell the difference with most of the stuff that's being said.
Right, exactly.
Wait a second, she said evolution. What is that?
That's what we called it at the time.
Yeah, so what's evolution exactly? It is an important question.
Like no one knows.
Well, this is exactly it. So can you repeat that, Betty?
No one knows.
And they couldn't define it then, back when they were throwing that term around. It was it mattered what day it was.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on.
Now let's take a listen on what the legends of physics have to say about this matter. So Max Planck, his acceptance speech, 1918, for his Nobel Prize. As a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about atoms this much. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force, which brings the particle of an atom to a vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious, intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. Now, what would happen if Max Planck was alive today and said this on the nightly news, on the BBC? What would happen to him? He'd get tar and feathered, right? Another one, Werner Heisenberg, pioneer of quantum mechanics. Listen to this one, folks. The first gulp from the glass of natural science will turn you into an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. These guys all knew this. They knew this back in the day. Why don't we know it now? What would happen to him if he did this on national news? I think he'd burned at the stake. Couple things pointed out here. Do you guys see the true dichotomy here? Natural atheist versus what? God. Another one, the first gulp from the glass of natural science. Most people haven't even acquired the glass yet. We all know these, right? We all know who these people are. That's a pretty pretty outstanding statement from Werner Heisenberg right here, folks. Let that marinate.
Yeah, we know who these people are. The first gulp from the glass, right? They haven't even acquired the glass yet. We're familiar with them, right? Air is not the atmosphere. A closed thermos is an open system. Snipers don't need to see their targets. Birds humping natural experiments. Level curves. Hashtag birds landing. Hashtag supernatural bird's nest. We know who these people are, right? They haven't even acquired the glass yet. And I love the proxy on the ontological primitives right in Werner Heisenberg's statement. I loved it, right? Because it's right there for you. It slaps you in the face. So I wanted to stop here just to drop anchor for a while and really try to understand what these guys are saying, right?
Well, what he's saying very specifically, Werner Heisenberg, that is, the first gulp from the glass of natural science will turn you into an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. That's what it says.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
And they hate that because they have great faith, again, more faith than any theist, that someday, air quote, science will come to the rescue and solve whatever problems they're facing right now, even though they're catastrophic. They still believe and still have faith that the great discovery is just around the corner. It's just like with cures for diseases. It's always just around the corner, and they have absolute blind faith that someday it will be found. And that is why it's called a religion, because they have blind faith in science or scientists that they're going to solve these unsolvable problems just someday. You just have to wait long enough. And every time somebody makes some kind of alleged discovery or tiny, tiny, tiny step, they're like, yeah, we're on the right path to what we believe is going to happen in the future. It's just faith. They can't escape it.
No, let's correct that. They have blind faith in pseudoscientists.
Right. You couldn't see my air quotes.
Oh, sorry
yeah,
about that.
That was it. I heard the air quotes when you said the word science. And you even corrected yourself, to be fair. You said scientists, and what scientists say is irrelevant when it comes to a method applied. And I don't think Werner Heisenberg would have said that if it wasn't for quantum mechanics, correct?
Exactly. He's an actual scientist.
Got anything to add, Betty? We've only got a couple more clips. I'll just do a quick plug after I find out if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, well, they always say that Christians that we invoke God as a fill-in for the gaps, but I think that they do this with science. They say, well, science hasn't figured it out yet. It will come in the future. So, yeah, it's for me. It's like they are doing that same argument, right? With the science of the gaps, I think, or something like that.
The pseudoscience of the gaps. Remember, There is no God of the gaps appeal. We did that up top. You can't have a gap. There's only two choices. There are no gaps. The only gap is between their ears, and it's massive.
It's massive. It's a big vacuum, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to say there's a Discord server link, but I've just checked my live feed and it does seem to be a slight issue with it, so I'll sort that out after I've paid out the last couple of clips. But shortly there'll be a Discord link for anybody who's not already part of the Discord server to join and discuss this topic after the presentation is finished. So it's goodbye, you guys. I'll go on to the last couple of clips.
A couple other things. Let's just clear a couple what I like to call background noise, and then we'll finish up here. So we all heard this, right? Who created the creator's creator's creator? That conundrum. This is a fallacy, folks. He is the creator. The creator can't be created, or else he couldn't be the creator. By simple definition. Furthermore, logically, for finite things to exist, that is the universe and us, there must be an eternal, always was source. It's a contingent necessity, antecedent fact. See Aristotle, prime, unmoved mover, first cause. To deny this, you are forced into a logical checkmate, then reduced to introducing an infinite regress fallacy. That's what this is. Nothing can create itself because that would mean it existed prior to its existence. That's logical seppuku. Also, there can only be one creator. Considering more than one, even for a Planck time, is logical seppuku. As for the philosophical naturalist or realist or atheist, they believe that the universe created them, right? Well, I always challenge them. I turn it on them and say, who created your creator? I don't like that very much. So, after all this, we finally realize, I mean, you can't get out of it. There must be a creator. So, the next logical follow-on question is what? Well, who is it? This is a systematic method to find that out. This is a personal method. I use this myself. It's quite simple. Since we know from the laws of thermodynamics and quantum mechanics that whoever it is, the creator must be outside of what we call the universe. So, make a list of every single purported deity and their respective claims on how they and the universe came to be. Next, you cross off the ones that are a product of the universe or claim that the universe has existed forever, right? Why? They're pretender clowns, because we already know what. Well, the universe can't have existed forever. We know there must have been an absolute beginning a finite time ago. We already know this. After you do that, there's only one left standing. He's the Alpha and the Omega, Jesus Christ. The largest escrow closing in the history of the universe is at the door, folks. Where do you stand? All glory to him. Thanks for your ear. Have a nice day.
And that is actually the end of the presentation. So hopefully we'll get some closing comments. I have got the Discord link in now, so if you do want to refresh, if you want to join via Discord and you're not already a member of Science versus Pseudoscience Discord server, then there is a link that's got a temporary membership attached in the info box below this video. Right. Excellent presentation, obviously. I've heard it before. It was great the first time.
The prosecution rests.
Yeah. Yeah, and then people say that after the last argument with all the other religions being of the universe or made within the universe, right? Then you come up with Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, right? So that's what people have to discern which one is then the correct one. And to help people with that a little bit is that only with Christianity are you not saved by your own works or by sacrificing animals like the Jews did. With Jesus dying for us, for our sins, we are saved by his death on the cross. So he paid the price for our sins. And it's not about works. When you are in Islam, you have to work at it, and you never be certain whether you are saved or can go to heaven. And also with Judaism, that's you have to sacrifice animals, and if you don't, then you are not saved. And now Judaism, they don't do that anymore. So that's why Christianity, for me, is the true religion. But everybody should search this out and read the Bible and get to their own conclusions.
Christianity is not a religion.
Yeah, but I need to give it a name. For me, it's a way of living, but okay, that's another thing.
And I might add, we have a law of non-contradiction violation when people say, well, they're all the same. How can you choose one? Well, they have mutually exclusive properties. If you look at the attributes of gods of various religions, and Betty just pointed out the one thing that stands out that none of the rest claim is that they have someone that was predicted to rise from the dead and fulfill hundreds of prophecies and has hostile witnesses, friendly witnesses. 500 people saw him alive afterwards. And I've mentioned before Simon Greenleaf, who was a founder of the Harvard School of Law, who was challenged to apply legal methods to the four gospel writers to determine if they were credible witnesses. And he did so. He was a hostile witness himself, not expecting to find out that they were, but upon finding out that they were and looking at all the details of the historical record, he had to conclude that this really happened, and he became a Christian as a result. So you don't find that kind of appeal to evidence in any other faith, in any other book. It's almost always the just so stories, which people ignorantly claim about the Bible, but and they even deny that Jesus existed, even though secular sources almost universally agree that he was baptized by John the Baptist in the Jordan River and sentenced to death by Pontius Pilate in the first century. So when people say those things, they're just speaking out of ignorance and violating the law of non-contradiction. So there must be only one, because their attributes are not the same. And which one, then, to me, in my mind, the showstopper is the evidence-based testimony for Jesus rising from the dead. I don't think that can be even come close to by any other faith.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they are superficially the same, but fundamentally different. I heard Ravi Zacharias say, and that's true.
It's just like people. I mean, when someone would say that all gods are the same, I'd say, okay, can I go visit Betty when I really went to Nathan's house? And just because they're both people and they live in houses and they drive cars or whatnot, or walk or whatever they do, they have so many things in common. How can they not be the same? And the problem is it's the differences that really matter.
Yeah. Yeah, but they want to now try to get all the religions together and to forge it into one, I think. And then they say, well, why don't these Christians want to do that? Want to merge it into one thing? But you have to make a division, I think, because we cannot marry all these religions to one.
It's the Hegelian dialectic again. You can't put two or however many mutually exclusive things together like that without getting rid of all of them and mashing them together in something new, which is what syncretism does. What the astrotheologists want to do is to just treat truth like a buffet and pick out the things that they want and make that the truth.
Yeah,
it's like dumping 5 boxes of jigsaw puzzles on the floor and just picking out the pieces you like and happen to be able to make a puzzle out of it. That's not truth at all. And that's what the dividing point is. The watershed is, it's all about what truth is.
Yeah, they want to make sort of a God that is love, and love is everything. But they forget that love also has rules. You have to have rules in that statement, because you have to divide within love what's not love, right? What's like envy and revenge and hate. That isn't love. You cannot marry these things into one. So there has to be a sort of a line, a border there, and therefore you have to have a sort of real rule set up within love, and that means that some people that don't comport to that love bit cannot belong to love, right? It's something that you need to learn also, what love is. People don't think about it, that it's something that has rules, that you don't do things like the 10 Commandments are basically those rules.
Yeah.
I've opened up all of the mics on the Discord server, so if there's anybody who wants to kick us off in there and offer their opinions, ask any questions, you're more than welcome. I'll probably close off the mics of those who don't immediately interject, just so we don't have loads of people talking at once.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Is that Jessica?
Yeah, hi.
Did you have a question, or did you want to add anything? Feel free, the mic's all yours.
Okay. But I was just I was gonna make a comment on what Betty and what Paula was saying. Like, I do agree that like I do agree that like even though a lot of people can find similarities within certain, and I don't like to say religion either. Like I prefer saying way of life or a practice. But basically but I'm sorry, what I was saying was that like in terms of like merging everything together, that definitely is something that is problematic because you have like everything like the way I see it is that everything in different places and different cultures manifested a certain way to that group of people. So like to try to merge everything into one thing and say that this is all the same and everything like that, you can't really do that because people in different cultures they have a different culture, they have a different history, they have different types of issues. So trying to merge everything into one would be very problematic. Like in terms of it, like even like spiritually, that would dumb down, that would water down what the core of what that spiritual practice is. So like I just wanted to say that like I agree that that merging everything together is not really, that doesn't work.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, if you see love like the sun, for example, like a burning fire, right? Like light. And if you corrupt that with if you corrupt white with black, it gets gray. So it isn't pure anymore. And the thing is that God is pure and pure white, pure love. So he cannot accept anything that is corrupt. So the only way that he can save us basically is that he makes us white again by sending his own son to die for us on the cross. And that's how I see it, that we can therefore enter back into God, which is pure. So therefore you have to have boundaries. There are people that say, well, that's not my God. My God is a God of love and everybody can enter. But with the mindset of atheists, then you should think also like, well, Hitler should be also in heaven then, because if God loves everybody, then why not Hitler, right? Even though he did these wrong things. So you have to have a sort of a judge. So God is also a judge. He needs to weigh out the good and the bad, what people done. And the only way that he can do that with an intercessor, which is Jesus. And no other religion has that. That's how I see it.
Yeah, there has to be holiness. That's what holiness is. It's justice. It's fairness. It's payback for whatever people suffered in this life. You know, there is no, I mean, we even know in our fallen state when something was done that was wrong to someone else, like us all being lied to, and we're all very angry and rightfully so. Well, do we think there should be no consequences for the ones who told the lies? Of course we don't. And this is just the same principle on the spiritual scale, is that everyone is accountable to their creator and accounts have to be settled. Now, God will have mercy on those who ask for it, who humble themselves and say, I'm sorry I did this, you know, I'm at your mercy, you're my creator, and he grants it. But for people who say, as the Bible puts it, it's like the pot of clay says to the potter, you have no skill, you don't know what you're doing, and doesn't acknowledge that it's the pot of clay and created, what can God do? I mean, this is what, if you get into why there's a hell, because hell is the place that God reluctantly will let people go to if they want to get away from him, you know, for eternity. You don't want me? Okay, I'll make a place for you to go because I'm omnipresent. So I had to make a place where I'm not, and where I'm not is devoid of everything good. That's just what people choose. They choose to go there. And the Bible says that God is not willing that anyone perish, but all come to repentance, and is not pleased with the death of the wicked. You know, God doesn't want people to make that choice, but they make it. And then they say he's unjust for making it. And then, you know, they'll continually contradict themselves and say, why is this world such a mess? Why doesn't God do something? And then when he does intervene, like the flood, for example, they hate him for that. Look at all the people he killed. What do they want him to do? They want contradictory things from God. And that's why we got like 181 downvotes so far on this video, because people hate that truth above all others. They hate the accountability. They hate not being God. They hate it that they are not the creator. And they resent it when anybody believes that. And that's where what I was saying a lot earlier about, it makes no sense. It's psychotic when people continually attack what other people believe. Well, this is why, because that's the ultimate end of all of these arguments about what's true and what isn't. It's there's a creator. Oh no, because now I'm not God and I have to give an account to the way I lived, because there must be ultimate justice. And they don't realize that when people get away with something in this life, that would be a terrible thing to have to endure, for the people who are victims, but God makes it right in the next life. And that's why there's a judgment day. And this all makes sense if people just think about it, but they don't think about it. They don't want to. They want to bury their heads in the sand and deny the truth staring in front of them, no matter what the topic is, because then it means that they have to be humble to some degree, and that they are not the cause of all this. They're not their own cause. And it just drives people mad.
I have to disagree with you in one respect. I do think they think about it, even if it's only for a fleeting moment. That's why we get the 181 downvotes, because they've thought about it for a second. And I think you could measure the reluctance to this information based on the number of skeletons in one's closet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, well, there are two major reasons why people don't come to God, basically. And it's all stated in the first story of Genesis with Adam and Eve. When Eve was being deceived by the devil, because he said, well, you can eat of this tree, and you can be like God, because God is trying to deceive you, because when you eat this fruit, you can be like God, right? So that's the first thing, that people think that they can be their own God. They can be better and more than God is. And then afterwards, when Adam is asked by God, where are you? And then there is another issue that Adam says, well, that woman that you gave me, she made me eat of the tree of good and evil. And that's basically the next part, is that we blame God for everything. So if then when we make a big mess of it, because we want to be our own God, we want to know what good and evil is, and we do the things that we do, and then we mess up, right? We make a big mess of it. Then we say, well, God, where are you? Where have you been all this time? And then we appeal to God and say, well, you're to blame. You're to blame that I'm here. You're to blame for this and that and the other. So we have no accountability. Those are the two major reasons. So if you talk to people, usually they fall into one of these two categories. They want to be their own God, or they say, well, people have had a lot of trauma in their lives, and then blame God, basically. But they forget there's also the devil that deceives. There's a deception in this world. And with Flat Earth, we see the deception everywhere. And if you can accept that there is a deception all throughout history going on, then I think it's really important to question, where did I come from and where am I going to? And as a Christian, we know where that is. But it is a straight path. We have to follow that path. And those are the rules of love, and that's the 10 commandments. You only need 10, nothing more.
Any further comments from those of you in the Discord server? Sal and
I agree. A lot of times people, and I don't know why. I understand, and at the same time, it's still very, just because I understand doesn't necessarily mean I agree with people having the certain attitudes that they do when it comes to accountability. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with just the overall misunderstanding of who God really is. and who the creator is. Like it's a lot of people aren't really even people who read the Bible, even people who grow up Christian, they can still grow up with a huge misunderstanding. Hence why you have some people who start off Christian and become atheists because they feel like there's this like they feel like there's this constant judgment towards them and that they have to, like they feel like they're slaves, basically. Like they have that kind of concept to it, and that's not really what it is. If you really understand, if you know God for what God really is, then you won't have that kind of mentality. And a lot of people aren't able to get to that point until it's shown to them at a certain stage in life, and they're like, oh, okay. Like then they're able to accept their situation and accept their position. But a lot of people just have this resentment because they don't understand that what they're going through is what's going to make them who they are. And that was the plan that was set up by the creator. You go through things to make you who you are and to develop like what your destiny is supposed to be. And everything like that. It goes much deeper, and a lot of people are missing that, and that's what's really discerning. So yeah.
I mean, without leading the Discord server too much, is there anybody with an opposing view? Anybody that's got any questions about maybe the ontological primitives or the nature of quantum mechanics, information, any of the things that were discussed on the presentation at all? Anyone in the Discord server? Tumbleweed.
Hold on a second. Does anyone have any questions about those topics?
Which topics?
Okay, well, this speaks volumes because that Discord server is absolutely infested to the gills with atheists, right? Why are they not in there? Support your position. Get on in there, go on in there. You will be polite. Ask your question or make your claim and support it. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Here's your chance. Stand up. Grab your backbone.
Yeah,
this is absolutely preposterous.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
While we're waiting for the hordes to arrive, I'll just do a quick shout out to one of my favourite YouTubers, Dilly Gill. Big shout out to you, my friend, in our chat at the moment. Go and subscribe to Dilly Gill. Excellent videos. Right click his name, subscribe today. I'm surprised too. I thought this, of all the shows, every time this topic comes up, because it's been obviously covered in some degree on other Ballbusters, it generates, the kind of discourse that's been going on in the chat. It's like, why don't you want to actually come and discuss it? Is it just easier to be a keyboard warrior in this regard? The forums get teeming with it. The chat threads get teeming with these people, but they don't actually want to confront you about this stuff. It doesn't make sense.
Well, they want to single us out. I think that's better to take on one by one.
They don't like the odds. Exactly. They don't have the majority. They know they wouldn't have the majority. And they know we can defend our positions. So I think, like, for example, my own experiences of just hopping on the panel once in a while on the regular debate show, like a couple of days after Christmas, when Nathan kindly invited me on because it was Christmas and wanted to, get my perspectives on some Bible things. And the shrieking from the anti-theists was just bizarre. And you see it in the chat, even now there's every once in a while someone was just spewing hate over the idea that somebody believes in God. I mean, that they think this is some kind of mental illness or something, or a disease, and here we are, in this flat earth community, we're supposed to be so awake and keen to the idea that we've been lied to about a lot of things, and how tolerant we should be of different opinions within us, same team. But not when it comes to that. That all flies out the window.
Yeah, that's a step too far for them yet, I think. For most people. Yeah.
Well, go get their priest then. If you guys don't have a backbone, go get your priest. The Aaron Ra idiot, right?
Yeah.
Those guys. What are some other ones? What's that Sam guy? I challenged him one day and he ran away. What the heck is his name?
Greater Satan or what?
It's a fairly long name.
I can't. He's pretty prominent. What are they called? The
Sam
Four
Harris.
Horsemen? Sam Harris. Yeah, that knucklehead.
Mm-hmm.
You can't bring Christopher Hitchens back. They just dote all over Christopher Hitchens, right? Right. He was an imbecile.
You had two pigeons, I think. Weren't there two brothers?
I don't know. We all know who we're talking about. Christopher Hitchens, knucklehead.
Yeah,
right.
Matt Delahanty, you have them.
Yeah, go get those. Of course, you can't get Christopher Hitchens, not without, some serious smelling salts and a big heater.
Well, it would be a blessing for him, I think.
Yeah. Go get the other ones.
Yeah, he doesn't need a heater.
Go bring them in here. They ain't gonna come in here. Because I challenged all these idiots personally, right? Personally. No. They ain't gonna do it.
Well,
come on.
No, let's list them off again. Let's have a proper poking of the bear. Why not? As we've not actually got them here. Nobody's got the balls to actually come into the Discord server and challenge anything. I'm shocked, to be honest. This is a first.
Well, you will see that on Monday when you have these shows again. Then things will be discussed.
Oh, it'll be back to normal once it's there's not a majority of people in the affirmative position to try and challenge the actual position. Like with Paula, she described on the Christmas show. Exactly right, Paula. You were outnumbered, therefore drowned out at the end. I mean, you got to make your presentation. I made damn sure of that. You know what I mean?
Right,
but by the same token, when it got to the actual debating stage, you just got drowned out by people more. It was majority rule.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to leave this show live for a few more minutes just to see if there's anybody else, because it does take a small amount of time to get through the Discord server and link to it if you're not. It's not as quick as just getting into a hangout. So I will keep the show live just for a few more minutes. Big shout out to 777 for the $7.77. Says awesome Ballbuster session. Thank you very much.
Nice. Nice move. $7.77, huh? Nice. Love it.
Yeah.
So are you guys, do you know who this
Very, very special number.
Cosell is? Is that somebody we're familiar with? Maybe Cosell hasn't piped up as yet.
Howard Cosell. Wasn't he the professional debater? That one that couldn't speak the last time? I think that's, the other day, Nathan.
Oh, right. Maybe he's got something to add. We'll find out. If not, it'll be the rounding out of the live show, and I'll plug my own channel. Big shout out to Tina Baker. Thank you very much to both you and your husband. It's an awesome show. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Tina. Really do appreciate your support, which has been abundant recently. Thank you very much. So yeah, as I say, I'll keep this show running for just a few more minutes, and if we don't get anybody joining in an opposing position, I'll round out, and there will be an after show to follow, so this will be my opportunity to plug my second channel. So when these shows conclude live on the main channel, Nathan Oakley 1980, where you're watching now live, they reconvene, if you like, on the second channel, which is Nathan Oakley. There's a link in the info box below this live stream. So check it out, or if you're watching on the re-up, again, in the info box, there's a link to the second channel, which is Nathan Oakley. And often is the case with Ballbusters shows, especially when the show ends live, people then tend to get a little bit more courage and perhaps challenge us where they wouldn't do it on the live show. So you can see the aftermath of this particular Ballbusters. It may or may not be interesting. We aren't clairvoyant, unfortunately, but as I say, check out the second channel, which is Nathan Oakley, and the link, as I say, is in the info box below this video. Any more brave souls in Discord? No, it's going to be the end of this show, live at least.
Hold off for a second before you close out. Go ahead.
Okay.
Anybody else in Discord?
Getting a slew of super chats. Thank you very much to Wade BMX. Sorry to overtalk you guys, and I can't see your name because of the glare. I'll shout you out when it goes up a bit higher. Thank you very much also for the super chats saying gravity is not a force. George Musa from Wade BMX. Never gets old. Never gets old. And great show from, I think it might be Guns and Stuff, is it? I just can't see for the glare. But thank you very much, both of you, for the super chats.
So nobody's saying anything in Discord. How many people are in Discord right now in the live stream?
3 or 4. Paul we know, Jessica we know, SX0 we know, so it's just literally one random that I don't know that we've not heard of as yet.
This is absolutely pathetic, right?
It really is.
So,
I could disagree
listen
with
up.
Betty,
Let's
but
get
I don't know if that'd be worth it.
No, Phil. If you wanna add something that's specifically on topic, I was kind of waiting for you to pipe up, to be honest, but I didn't want to call you in case you were away from your mic. But yeah, absolutely, add because the live show's the one that gets the most viewership. So if you've got something on topic, add it now, definitely.
Yeah, actually, it's actually when way I think it was Paula was describing hell, and I don't know if I look at it the same way. It's like it's the absence of God. I look at it more as it's God's presence there, but it's His judgment. So that's the only thing I guess I would make a point to say. I don't know if God's not in hell. I think He is there, but it's His judgment being poured out. And then also that's what we're saved from, is His judgment. I think that's the only point of difference I would say, because I came in at the end, so I don't know the whole conversation up to that point.
Yeah, it's really kind of splitting hairs at that point. Just trying to convey the idea of why there was a hell, that it's the place of not God is the simplest way I can put it, as far as everything good coming from God. Therefore, if someone has chosen for eternity that they want nothing to do with God, then He made a place for them. So that's the angle I was approaching that from.
Oh yeah, that is. Yeah, you're right. It's about splitting hairs, but that's the only way I would describe it, just a little differently. So, because I think it's more wrathful in that sense than just His absence in the other sense.
Right.
So no one else.
Yeah,
Huh?
there's a new guy in. Maybe he wants to talk.
Okay.
A guy named Fosh. Can you talk? He just came out new. Maybe Discord is new to him.
You want me to? No, he's not server muted. Flash him, but we hear nothing.
Yeah.
No, you've got mic issues, my friend, I'm afraid. As Discord's definitely working.
So, okay, it's a little bit unfair to be calling these people out. They were probably busy. They didn't know this was happening. No problem. Plenty of atheists have heard my presentation here. So we'll just leave it open. They can come in anytime. The invitation is open anytime for the 4 horses' asses. I mean, the 4 horsemen. Well, there's only 3 horses' asses. I mean, 3 horsemen. You got Dick Dawkins, you got that Sam Harris, and the Dennett guy. So get on the email, get on the calls, and saying there's this creationist over here that's calling them retards, because that's what they are. And they're professing their retardia, right? Just come on over here. The water's warm, and then we'll get the cases. Thanks.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who have joined us in the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream. Last but not least, a massive shout out to Fons Arella for the super chat. I disagree, but love your show. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. You're a bit late on the disagreeing bit, but thank you very much. If you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley after show, then stay tuned, as there will be more to follow. A massive thank you to all of the Ballbusters. That's Paula, otherwise known as Knowledge Scavenger, Betty Van Velsen, and Quantum Eraser. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the Discord server for making the interactive after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley YouTube channel, and I'll see you all in the next Ballbusters.